What's up, y'all? It's Celeste. I've had a few requests of people wanting me to make a video about being off of tea, what things have reverted back, what has stayed the same, just kind of generally how it's going, and what maybe you can expect if you also take tea for some length of time and then stop taking it, whether that's because it was your plan all along, as it was for me, or maybe you take it for a while and you decide it's not for you and you just want to stop taking it, which is totally fine. It's fine to change your mind about things like that. Or maybe there's some outside reason you have to stop taking it, whether it's a medical reason or you just have trouble maintaining access to it or something like that. So I'm going to be talking about my own experience here. Your mileage may vary. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's reactions to tea are different. And also the other thing, if you're new here, here's a little bit of background about my journey with tea. Last year, I took tea for the first time for 3 months at a low dose. Then I stopped taking it for 6 months. Then I went back on it for 5 months at kind of varying doses, but peaking at 100 milligrams per week. And then I went off of it for a month. Then I went back on it for a month. Then I went off of it for 2 months. And here we are. So it's a little bit confusing, I know. The reason that I did it that way is because there are certain changes that happen on tea that are permanent, and one of those changes is a voice drop. That was what I wanted the most out of all of the changes of tea. One of those changes is getting more facial and body hair, which is what I really didn't want, and so I've been kind of trying to balance those against each other this whole time. So again, because I have this kind of off and on journey, it might differ a little bit from what it would have been like if I had just been on tea for 9 months straight and then off of it for 2 months. So just keep that in mind. Keep in mind this is my experience with the particulars of my journey and the way that I've gone about taking tea. So the reason that I went back and forth several times, like I said, is because I was trying to balance these different changes that were happening. And specifically, it was because some of the changes that happen are permanent changes, but there still is some degree of variability once you stop taking tea. For example, with facial and body hair, the facial hair that you grow isn't all going to go back away to where you were pre-tea, but it can kind of soften, it can thin out, it can grow a lot more slowly once you've been off tea for a while. But those things don't happen overnight. It's not like you stop taking tea and then immediately your body just like resets to how it was before you took tea. As far as like the ongoing levels of tea, your natural hormone levels don't just like snap back like that. You have to give your body some time to level back out, to have like your sort of balance that you normally have of estrogen and testosterone, etc., to get back to your natural levels. So in order for that to happen, you have to wait a little while, which can take a few weeks or months. It kind of depends, I think, on how long you've been on tea, the dose you were on. And it can also vary between the different changes that you have, which I will be getting to in this video. And so in order for me to really get an idea of how things were going to be ultimately once I stopped taking tea, it wasn't like I could just say like, I'm taking tea, here's where I am, and if I stop taking it today, everything will be exactly like this forever, because that's not necessarily true. Some things we're going to revert back totally, because some things on tea are only happening as long as you have an ongoing maintenance dose basically of tea in your system. And then some things we're going to stay here forever, and then some things we're going to change back slightly, but not all the way. And there's not really any way to exactly know how all of that is going to shake out until you've actually been off of tea for a while. So what would happen is that I would stop taking it and think, well, maybe I'm done forever, but I don't really know. I'm going to have to kind of wait and see how things go and how I feel about things. And then I would get to a point where I was like, all right, some things have changed back and I don't like those. Or I would say maybe some things didn't change enough. Like with my voice, I wasn't happy with where my voice was, so I went back on tea. And just kind of balancing those things. And so it took time for my body to sort of readjust each time and for me to get an idea of how things were going to be. But it also kind of mentally and emotionally, I just needed some time in between to kind of reassess things and kind of reflect and decide how I wanted to proceed. And that was the best way for me to take tea. I think if I had felt like I had to start once and just go until I was like 100% sure I was done and then stop forever and never have any more agency over any of it, I would have felt very trapped, and I would have felt like that wasn't the way that I needed to take tea. That works for a lot of people, especially if you want every change that happens on tea, or essentially every change that happens on tea. A lot of people are fine taking tea and just like sticking with it forever. But it's also fine if that's not how you want to do it. It's fine if you want to take it for a while and stop and see how things go. Now, I'm not advocating that you just like start and stop hormones willy-nilly, because there are effects that are happening to your body. Not just talking about the effects that you want, or the obvious effects, but it's not really good for your body to be like kind of messing with hormones constantly. So you do need to talk to your doctor about this and be clear with them about what your goals are, and discuss with them how you can best achieve those goals. So that's my disclaimer here. But anyway, that's kind of a background about why I took tea this way, because I know it might sound a little bit confusing. And then the other little background thing that I have to say here is my last update that I made on here was about how I'd been on tea for 8 months total, and I was stopping. And I haven't talked about it since then, but if you were paying attention earlier, I said that I was on tea for 9 months. And so that last month that I mentioned, where I took tea for 6 months, then went off it for a month, and then went back on it for an extra month here, that month there, I haven't actually talked about on here. I've really only mentioned it to a few people, like one-on-one, or I think I mentioned it a couple of times in some Facebook groups or something like that, but I haven't talked about it really anywhere else. And the reason for that is basically just like I wasn't really sure what was happening with it. Like it's not like I was like, I'm going to take it for another month. It was more like I thought, well, I think I want to take like one more shot and see how it goes, and like reassess next week. And I just happened to do that 4 times. And then I was like, all right, I think I'm done now. So I didn't really feel like it was worth announcing or anything. And I also wanted to just kind of see how things went with it. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that, because I know it might be confusing if my last update was 8 months and then all of a sudden I'm talking about that I was on it for 9 months. Okay, so now that that's all out of the way, I do have my usual list here of things that I'm going to be talking about that I normally talk about in my tea update videos, of changes that have happened or things that can happen on tea. And of course, this time I'm going to be talking about what has changed about those things now that I've been off of tea for 2 months. So first of all, with my voice, I actually have not noticed a change in my voice since I stopped taking tea, which is great. That's what I expected, but it's also a very good thing to have happened, because I really didn't want my voice to go back up at all. When I went back on tea that last month, part of the reason for that was because I wasn't really sure what my voice was doing. It was still very unstable at that time. And it was just, I don't know, it was just being kind of weird, and I didn't necessarily think it was going back up, but I don't know, just kind of after thinking about it a little bit, I just felt like, well, I don't know, I'm not 100% happy with it, so I'll just see, like, I'll just take another shot and see what happens. I don't actually know if it went back down further during that final month or not. It's a little bit hard for me to tell, because I also am taking singing lessons, and have been for this whole year pretty much. So for pretty much the whole time my voice has been dropping on tea, I've been taking voice lessons. So I've had my voice changing in multiple ways. It's been changing physically as my anatomy actually changes and my voice drops. It's also been changing because I'm learning to use it differently, and I'm learning to use resonance differently, and I don't know, it's a little bit complicated, and I am still planning to make a video about learning to sing while taking testosterone, because a lot of people have talked about being a singer and taking testosterone, but those people are people who are already singers to begin with, And in my case, like, I'm learning to sing for the first time while my voice was changing. So it's like learning to solidify my voice and my range and everything has been happening as my range has been shifting. So it's been this kind of like moving target the whole time. And so the kind of stability and strength and clarity, etc., of my voice has been changing a lot, and it has been kind of back and forth a lot. And some of that is because of the changes that are happening physically with me, and some of it is because of different techniques I'm learning and stuff. And it's kind of hard to, I don't know, kind of separate those completely. So all that to say, when my voice felt really unstable during the period after I stopped taking tea the second time, it's a little hard for me to say like whether how it ended up after I took it the last month was because of taking tea again, or if it's because I had continued to work on it and so therefore it had kind of smoothed out and solidified my whole range. So it's kind of hard to separate that out. But I will say that since I stopped taking it this final time, this, I guess, most recent final time, because I'm not 100% sure I'll never take it again in the future, just being honest here, although I'm not planning to. But since I've been off it for the last 2 months, I have felt like my voice has been becoming more and more stable, has become more consistent and more reliable, and I haven't had as much of the kind of like cracky, like, I don't know, kind of hoarse sounding speech that I was having a little bit before. I never had like a lot of very obvious cracking, like that kind of thing, but it just was, I don't know, kind of unreliable, where I would just be talking normally and then I wouldn't really know how it was going to sound. And it still does that sometimes. And even now, like, there's like a little bit of a hoarse quality to my voice, I think, that I haven't quite mastered how to rein that in a little bit. But a lot of this, I think, is just because I'm not used to this voice yet, and I'm also still trying to learn other things like inflection and things like that that also have a big impact on how the voice is perceived. So I don't know, there's a whole lot of stuff I'm still working on with my voice, but as far as like the physical changes and everything, I feel like after being off of tea for 2 months, it's still settling and it's still not 100% like finalized or whatever, I don't think, but it has remained more stable during this period than it was for the several months before that when I was on tea. And as far as I know, I haven't lost any low notes that I gained during the time that I was taking tea. I definitely think that my facial and body hair has slowed down a lot in terms of the new growth that I'm getting. I haven't really gotten any, and I don't know that I even really got any new growth during that last month that I was on tea. But it also is growing more slowly now. Like the hair that is already there that came in while I was on tea is no longer growing back as quickly as it was when I was on tea. And I think it has maybe thinned out a little bit as well. It's a little hard for me to tell for sure, just because it's kind of hard to quantify. But I'll put a couple of clips up here comparing my face when I was on tea and then this morning. So here's a clip from when I was on tea, and this is after not shaving for just 1 day. And here is a clip from this morning after not shaving for 4 days. So I'm not actually looking at these side by side when I'm making this video, so this is kind of just from memory, but I do think that my hair grew a lot more quickly when I was on tea. Like the growth that I had over just 1 day was a lot more obvious and more, not necessarily more spread out, because in the second clip, I think you can see that the hair is there. Like you can see where the hair grows, even though it's not really that long yet in a lot of places. But there are specific places on my face where it grows much more quickly and is more obvious, especially like right here, and then like right here, and then there are like a few other little patches around. If not for those, I probably could go like a week without shaving and nobody would even really notice. Like the hair that's on most of my face is not really noticeable unless you get up close like I am doing in these videos. But there are these little parts that are still not like a ton of hair or anything, but because the hair is so dark, it is more noticeable. Like I think if I were talking to somebody one-on-one, probably within like a day or two of not shaving, they would probably notice that. I did also switch to using a safety razor last week instead of an electric razor, which is what I've been using all along since I started getting facial hair. And I like it so far. The electric razor did a pretty good job of getting rid of the hair, but I was having so many bumps, so many razor bumps, so much acne, and it was literally a pain and also not attractive. And I'm still dealing with that a lot. I still have it all over my face and it's still like a hassle and everything that I'm trying to deal with. I'm actually going to the dermatologist tomorrow, so I don't know what she'll say, but that I'm hoping the safety razor will help me with. I think it is helping somewhat, but my skin is going to take a little while to calm down, I think. So it's a little hard to say at this point. But as far as the acne itself, I actually feel like it has gotten a lot worse since I stopped taking tea. I think the tea did increase my acne in some areas, like on my chest and back. I did get acne there, and at this point I barely, like, you can't even really tell that I had acne on my chest. I mean, there are some bumps, but they're not really even that red. There's maybe like a few spots that are a little bit red, but I don't really have acne on my chest anymore. On my back, I have a few spots, and like I think it's more like there are more leftover red spots on my back, but as far as like actual acne, I really don't have much to speak of on either my chest or my back. Like neither one is really a problem for me. So those have calmed down a lot since I stopped taking tea. But on my face, I feel like when I was on tea, I did get some flare-ups here and there, but for the most part, I think because of the testosterone kind of leveling everything out and me not having a constantly changing cycle every month, it actually helped my acne a lot. So that was kind of unexpected. I have hormonal acne, so I thought that when I went on tea, my acne would get really bad, and it ended up not really doing that, and it's been much more of a pain since I stopped taking tea. But again, part of that is from having to shave, so I don't know, it's a whole complicated thing, but that's kind of what I've been dealing with. One of the other things that I have noticed a lot changing in the last month especially has been my facial shape, also my body, but what I've really noticed the most has been my face. And the changes that I had on tea in my face were very subtle, so I don't know how noticeable it actually is to most other people, but I definitely have noticed it going back to being more feminine than it was. Now, the facial and body changes that happen on tea are basically just a matter of fat and muscle redistribution. It's not like your jawline, like your bones of your jaw don't actually change. The bones in your face don't actually change unless you're very young when you're taking tea and your bones are actually still growing. In that case, they probably would, but that's not who I am. I'm in my mid-30s. So, I like the changes that I've had on and off of tea are just a matter of like me losing weight in my face or gaining weight in my face. And I also, during the last couple months, have been changing several things with my diet and exercise routine and stuff, somewhat on purpose because I was getting ready for Dragon Con and was trying to like make sure I fit into all my costumes and stuff. But also like after Dragon Con, I was really busy and sick for a week or so, and so my fitness routine kind of got out of whack and everything. So that's also a factor in this. I can't 100% say like what of this is from just the tea and what is from me messing with other things like diet and exercise. But I definitely have lost about, I think, 8 pounds since I stopped taking tea. And some of that is definitely muscle. I haven't lost all my muscle that I had gained on tea. And to be clear, the muscle that I gained on tea, it's not like I took tea and just like magically gained muscle. I was working out during that period, but it was easier for me to gain muscle on tea than when I'm not taking tea. I haven't lost all of that, but I have lost a lot of my strength in the last few weeks since I wasn't working out as much, or at all for the week where I was sick. And I kind of feel like if I had been continuing to take tea this whole time, I wouldn't have lost that progress so quickly. But that's kind of speculation on my part. I don't really know, but I kind of feel like that's how it would have been. But I don't know. It's hard to say like what would happen in all these different scenarios, because I only have myself to base it on, and I only have what I actually did to base it on. I can't say like what would have happened because I didn't do that. I feel like I can get my strength back. I can get the muscle back that I had on tea. It's not like only taking tea is like the only way I can gain muscle, but it's going to be harder, I think, for me than it was when I was on tea. That was a nice little boost that I had that I won't have now, but I think I just need to work hard and kind of get back to that. So we'll see about that. But as far as my face shape, I definitely have, that's one of the main things that I think I've noticed that has kind of been getting me down, because I really got attached to my face. Well, I'm always attached to my face, but I'm talking about emotionally attached. I was attached to the way my face looked. I just felt like it felt more like me when I would look in the mirror. I just felt more of a connection. It's not like I see this face and I'm like, that's a total stranger or anything like that. It's just, there's just more of this sense of alignment when I looked at my face when I was on tea. And even though I said that it's just like a matter of like weight gain and stuff, it's not just the fact that I gained weight. Like, I've been a lot chubbier in the past. I've gained weight in my face in the past, and I didn't look any more masculine. It's like the specific places on your face where the fat deposits is determined by your hormones. So it's not like I could just like gain weight and look like that again necessarily. I don't know. I just like when I look at myself now, I'm just starting to see like much more of a feminine look, that it's not like I hate or anything, but it just doesn't feel as much like me to myself, and it's just not really what I want to look like, but there's not really anything I can do about it. I think the only things I have left to talk about are kind of the TMI things. So if you don't want to know about menstruation or my junk, then you can skip this part, and I will put a timestamp here where you can skip to. I'm very lucky in that my menstrual cycle stopped completely when I was on tea. Within the first month, it stopped, and I didn't have to worry about it for the whole rest of the time, which was great, and I feel very fortunate about, because I know not everybody has that happen. When I stopped taking it in May, which was the second time I stopped taking it, about a month later, I bled for like a day, and then that was it. And then I started taking tea again like a couple of days after that, and I think it took like another month or so for me to have another one, and that time it was like especially long and especially heavy, so that sucked. And I've had two more since then. One was kind of normal, and then most recently, like currently, it's more heavy and more painful than usual. So I'm hoping that things are gonna kind of level back out, because this hasn't been fun at all. I definitely liked when I didn't have it whatsoever, because that was amazing and that's how it should be, but it's not. So that hasn't been too much fun, but it has been pretty regular as far as timing of things, I guess, so I will say that for it. I haven't had to deal with like a lot of like back and forth or like breakthrough bleeding or like anything like that. It's just been a little bit more erratic as far as like the heaviness and length of time that it lasts and stuff like that, but it hasn't been totally wacky as far as like the scheduling of it. As far as my junk, I did get some growth when I was on tea, and I feel like that area is a little bit smaller now than it was when I was on tea. I don't know if it actually is. It either is, which is possible. That change is one that is supposed to be permanent, but I have heard anecdotally a lot of people say that theirs did kind of shrink back slightly when they stopped taking tea. It's definitely not what it was like before I started taking tea, so it's not like it went completely back or anything, but I think it might be smaller. It either is, or it's that I just got so used to it that it just doesn't seem as big as like it maybe did when I first grew, and I was like, oh, that's bigger than I remembered like it having been before. I don't know. Or it's that when I was actively taking tea, that area was a lot more sensitive, and so it was actually more like awake than it is right now. And so that probably made it seem bigger. And now that it's a lot more calmed down, it probably is just like, I don't know, like it doesn't seem as big because it's just kind of like there. So I don't know if the whole thing has actually gotten smaller, or if it's just that I'm like now comparing like a calm version to a not calm version of it. I'm trying to describe this without being too graphic, but I'm sure you know what I'm kind of going for here. So hopefully that's helpful to somebody out there. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it for that. And I think that covers most of what I wanted to talk about in this video. Although, of course, if I left anything out that you wanted me to cover, then please do leave a comment below and I will talk about it in a future video, because I will be making more updates as time goes on about what happens as I'm off of tea for even longer. And you can also leave a comment on Instagram or direct message me or wherever you want to get a hold of me. That's fine too. I do want to say that I have been having a little bit of a hard time not taking tea. Like I said, my face has been a big part of that. But also, I don't know, I just miss taking it. I actually miss doing the shot. Like, I know that sounds kind of weird, but needles have never really bothered me. I'm fine with them. And so it never was like a scary thing for me. It was just a thing that I did. But I just kind of miss like that being part of my routine, and just I don't know, kind of the ritual of it was just like almost like a self-care thing. It just made me feel like I was like doing something that's good for me, that is like getting me more in alignment with myself, and it just made me feel good. And I don't have that now, so I kind of miss that. I don't miss dealing with the pharmacy and trying to get my prescription filled properly and things like that. That was a pain. But the actual shot I do miss. And I also just miss the feeling of being on it. Just in general, I feel better when I'm on tea. I feel it's not like I had any major emotional or mental shifts, like chemically or anything like that. It just, I don't know, it just gave me more confidence. It just made me feel more in alignment with myself and just generally better. It's a little hard to describe, but it just made me feel more right than I do right now. It's not like right now I feel awful. I don't feel depressed, and I don't feel like dysphoric or anything like that. It's not like anything really bad. It's just I felt so much better when I was on tea. I don't know, I just felt better. And I miss that. And if it were not for the facial and body hair issue, and if I could also kind of control my voice, because I don't want my voice to get super much deeper. I wouldn't mind it getting slightly deeper than this, but I don't want to lose my tenor range. If I could have control over those two things, I would just stay on tea forever, because everything else pretty much I like a lot, and I just feel a lot better on it. So it sucks that I have to make a choice, but I do, and I really don't want any more facial and body hair. So that kind of like that one thing kind of controls my decision, which sucks. I know that there are theoretically, like, there are DHT blockers that supposedly you can take at the same time that supposedly keep your hair from growing, but I don't know very much about that. I haven't really looked too much into it. I don't know. I kind of feel like if that really worked, that more people would do it. But if you know anything about that and you want to share it in the comments, I would love to hear about it. I'm sure a lot of other people would love to hear about it. So please do share anything you know about that. It would be really helpful to have some information about it. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to see more of my future content, and hit that notification bell so you find out as soon as I post something. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.